In 2004, the average human attention span was 2.5 minutes. In 2025, according to UC Irvine professor Gloria Mark's research, it dropped to 40 seconds. 40 seconds. A goldfish has an attention span of 9 seconds. So congratulations, you're still beating the fish. But you're losing to yourself. If you can focus long enough to watch this opening, you're already ahead of half the people who started this video. Not because you're special, because your brain has been trained to move on. Here's a question you've probably asked yourself at the end of too many days. I was busy all day. Why does it feel like I got nothing done? You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're living in a system that was designed to make you feel this way. In 2026, the average office worker switches between tabs and tasks 1,200 times per day. That's not a productivity strategy. That's cognitive self-harm. Every time you switch, your brain pays a switching cost. Research from Harvard Business Review shows that task switching can cost up to 40% of your productive time. Think about that. Nearly half your day isn't spent working. It's spent recovering from interruptions. So what's actually happening inside your head? In a 2026 study published in the journal Psychophysiology, researchers made a fascinating discovery about how we perceive time. They found that when you're making quick judgments about time, your brain relies on something called dynamic priors. That's a fancy way of saying your brain is constantly updating its expectations based on what just happened. If you just scrolled through 3 TikToks, your brain now expects the next thing to be equally short. If a meeting runs long, your brain starts to rebel. This isn't just psychology, it's electrophysiology. The study identified a specific brain signal called P3A that spikes when your time expectations are violated. Your brain is literally buzzing with frustration when something takes longer than expected. And in 2026, everything takes longer than expected. Because your brain now expects everything to be 40 seconds. Let's talk about who built this trap. The attention economy isn't a metaphor, it's an industry. Your focus is the product. Every notification, every infinite scroll, every autoplay video, they're not bugs, they're features. Features designed to do one thing: keep you engaged. A 2026 report from the International Association of Department Stores analyzed what they called the utility tax, the cost of extracting human attention for algorithmic optimization. Their conclusion? Creators and consumers alike are burning out. Creators spend more energy satisfying algorithms than making meaningful content. Consumers, meanwhile, are migrating to private spaces, group chats, small communities, anywhere the algorithms can't follow. Because public feeds have become exhausting. 73% of Americans say news feels faster than ever. 52% feel overwhelmed by the volume. 23% report feeling anxious. These aren't personal failures. They're systemic outcomes. Here's what this fragmentation does to you that you can't measure. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi spent his career studying something he called flow, the state of deep, effortless concentration where time disappears and you're fully immersed in what you're doing. A 2026 study from the University of Waterloo reaffirmed what he found decades ago. Flow requires uninterrupted time, at least 15 to 20 minutes just to enter the state. In a world where your attention is pulled every 40 seconds, flow becomes impossible. You never enter the deep water. You're always wading in the shallows. And here's the cruelest part. When you never experience flow, you lose the memory of what it feels like. You start to believe that shallow, fragmented attention is normal. That feeling of I was busy all day but got nothing done, that's not a productivity problem. That's a flow deficit. In January 2026, a Danish researcher named Nina M. Mulgaard Nielsen presented her PhD work on something we all experience but rarely name: the attentional demands of digital life. Her findings are worth paying attention to. First, people check social media not because they're addicted, but because of situational context. In low engagement moments, waiting in line, sitting on the bus, taking a break, the phone is an easy default. But here's the catch. When you check your phone in these moments, you're training your brain that every gap should be filled. You're losing the ability to just be. Second, social media notifications don't just distract you. They change how hard your brain has to work. Nielsen's research showed that when notifications are introduced to a task, perceived difficulty increases. To maintain the same performance, your brain has to exert more effort. You're working harder to achieve the same result, and you're not even aware it's happening. There's another layer to this that most people never consider. In a 2026 study from Italy's Gabriele D'Annunzio University, researchers found something strange about how our brains handle time. When you're making quick, intuitive judgments about time, your brain doesn't use space as a reference. But when you're slow, when you're uncertain, when you're struggling, your brain recruits spatial thinking to help. You literally reach for metaphors like looking back at the past or looking forward to the future. This is called the Stirk effect, the spatial temporal association of response codes. And here's what it means for you. When your attention is fragmented, when you're constantly interrupted, when you can't get into flow, your brain falls back on these spatial heuristics. You're not experiencing time directly anymore. You're experiencing a metaphor for time. The moment you start feeling that time is flying, you've already lost contact with it. So what do? You can't delete your phone. You can't quit the internet. You can't move to a cabin in the woods, most of us, anyway. But you can reclaim something that's been taken from you. Sovereignty over your own attention. UC Irvine's Paul Leonardi, who studies digital exhaustion, suggests 3 practical moves. 1. Match the tool to the task. Simple things can be Slack or text. Complex things need email or, God forbid, a meeting. 2. Break the urgency bias. Not everything needs a response in 3 seconds. In fact, almost nothing does. 3. Reduce the visual noise. Close the tabs. Hide the notifications. Make your screen look like a tool, not a casino. There's a line from a Chinese philosopher that stayed with me. Confucius once described his ideal life as bathing in the Yi River, enjoying the breeze on the rain altar, and singing on the way home. That's not a productivity hack. That's not a time management technique. That's a life with space in it. Space to feel time pass. Space to not be productive. Space to just be. That space is the most valuable thing you can own. And no algorithm can give it to you. You have to take it.